So every week we have a team meeting, and we end up chatting about whatever's going on in the business. But equally importantly, we chat about things that might end up on any of our shows. And Carla always has kind of these gold nuggets from outside of whatever my sphere of like media consumption is, that she ends up sharing with us and end up being really interesting discussions on the show. So like one thing that she shared in the past was, and I don't know how I missed this, which was that YouTube was getting the Oscars, if you remember that. But recently she shared something with me that was about Taylor Swift. Now, are you, either of you, Neutrally, Benji, you guys listen to Taylor Swift much at all?
Well, because the girls are with me, and some of them, I have 5 daughters, so not all of them are, but some of them are fans. So naturally, some of her music will pop up. The recent one is Ophelia.
Ophelia,
Is that the name of the album?
The Fate of Ophelia, I think, is the name of the song.
You're asking the wrong person.
Okay. yes, I listen to some of her music.
There you go.
Theoretically.
Yeah, theoretically. Well, I mean, obviously she's like maybe the biggest artist on the earth, one of the biggest artists on the earth for sure. And there's a bit of drama that's been going on lately that stems from something related to YouTube that I think it illuminates the changing landscape of the industry, but also what individual creators and artists can do that plays into their own strong suits. So hopefully I've hooked you. Let me tell you this story. So there is this article by Abrar Al-Hiti from CNET that's titled, "Here's Why Taylor Swift's Opalite Music Video Isn't on YouTube Yet." So just take that headline at face value really quick. Taylor Swift's Opalite video, so one of the music videos for one of the songs that she made, did not start out on YouTube. Any thoughts about it just from the very beginning?
No, it was on another platform, you're saying?
Well, that's the thing, is that it was on the streaming platforms for music streaming. Now, let me quote from the article. It says, YouTube may still be where many people instinctively go to watch music videos, but when Taylor Swift dropped her video for Opalite on Friday, it was noticeably absent from the platform. In fact, it won't be landing on YouTube until Sunday, 2 days after its release on other streaming platforms. They continue, so why is the Opalite music video only available on Apple Music and Spotify Premium right now?
2 theories here.
Go.
Number one, she has a deal with one of those other platforms to give like a gap between her YouTube audience or anyone being able to go to YouTube for free and listen to it versus listen to it early on these other platforms. So she has a deal. This is something that creators have been offered by other video platforms in the past. Verizon is the really famous one that's not even around.
Go 90.
Secondly, it might have something to do with her commission, that she makes more money on these other platforms, and theoretically the biggest jump in listening might happen other places, right, including Spotify, and maybe she makes more replay, like revenue from that versus whatever YouTube split is when it comes to music. That's my 2 theories.
You're on the scent, but you're off by just a bit, because this is such a weird one, and it actually involves the platforms themselves and not just Taylor Swift. So let me continue. It likely has to do with a disagreement between YouTube and Billboard, which ranks the most popular songs and albums of the week. In December, Billboard shifted its charting methodology so paid and subscription-based streams are weighted even more favorably than ad-supported streams. Billboard started weighing paid streams higher than ad-supported ones in 2018. This most recent shift narrows that ratio from 1 to 3 to 1 to 2.5, putting numbers like platforms like YouTube at more of a disadvantage. Now, I read this and I think that they maybe got this a little bit wrong. I was at least a little bit confused and didn't quite understand what they were saying. So the first thing to note is that what they're saying is that Billboard treats streams from paid platforms more favorably than ones that are free. So if you're watching it on Apple Music or Spotify because you pay for those platforms, right, that counts more for the Billboard Hot 100 charts for Taylor Swift than a YouTube music video stream does on its own. There's more to be said, but I see you making a face and I want to hear what you're thinking.
Something smells a little suspicious to me because I was going to say maybe it's the algorithm of YouTube that would favor a Taylor Swift song because of, user behavior and the fact that they might tend to listen to more Taylor Swift, like by the numbers, versus on Spotify, maybe not as big of an audience. I mean, YouTube just is a bigger audience, so it could skew it a certain direction. But then also all these other platforms have algorithms too. If you're just doing autoplay and you've got a certain playlist or feel of music, it might suggest it. That's my only thought. But again, what smells suspicious is these platforms making deals with the Billboard people saying, hey, actually our listens are more real, or they represent this desire to listen to it, versus on YouTube it's more about just whatever the algorithm suggests. That may be the argument. And then making a deal with Billboard is like, hey, let's like weigh our listens more for the Billboard. And then in turn, by the way, you didn't even tell me like if there's any kind of answers from the label or Taylor Swift's camp, if they're like, you know what, if that's the case, we're going to delay the YouTube upload because we want the listens to be there if we're going to get on the Billboard 100 list higher.
Yeah, no, and I think that there is something to be said probably about a potential for some sort of contractual thing. But let me keep going because I feel like this article did not do a good job. It just kind of stated these weird ratios, and I think it got backwards or like raised a bunch of red flags for me. So I was like, I have to go deeper. I want to know what actually is going on here. So I went deeper and I found a article by Billboard themselves on December 16th of 2025. So the end of last year, just a couple of months ago. And here's what they said. They said, as part of the change, paid and subscription on-demand streams will continue to be weighted more favorably as compared to ad-supported and on-demand streams, with the ratio between the two tiers narrowing from 1 to 3 to 1 to 2.5 based on an analysis of streaming revenue. Now, this is the same information that CNET article gave us, right? But I'm couching it in the thing that Billboard actually brought up as important, because what they were saying is that the reason we are making this change in the first place is because streaming is way more popular now than it ever was before. And in particular, not only is it more popular, it's making more money than it ever was before. So we need to actually make all streams count more towards the Billboard Hot 100 than they have in the past. So remember, Billboard has been around for decades now at this point. They are firmly rooted in the era where albums were the things that were being sold in actual like record stores or CD shops and things like that. And so originally it was about how many of these records, how many of these albums were actually being sold to consumers. Not how many times things were being played on the radio, not how many times something was streamed, because streaming didn't happen yet, right? How many album sales were going along. So of course, when Napster comes along, when iTunes comes along, when Spotify comes along, when Apple Music comes along, that throws a big monkey wrench into the middle of that idea of measuring album sales. So what they've done is they basically said, we now realize that streaming is so dominant that we're shifting everything. And also, even within streaming, we're actually going to segment out whether you are someone who's watching or listening on a paid streaming service versus someone who's listening on a free streaming service like Pandora or YouTube. Now, what they've done here is they've gone a step further than that. They're not just saying that streaming as a whole is getting bigger. They're also saying that YouTube is also actually contributing more to the pie as well. And so before, it was every 3 views on YouTube counted as 1 stream on Apple Music or Spotify. Wow. Now it's just 2.5 to 1. Now that's still a pretty big delta, right? But that's a pretty big change.
Versus that's 1.
Versus, wait, say that again?
Yeah, versus 1 listen on those other platforms.
Exactly. So every 2.5 streams, there's 1 listen on another platform. So let me continue, because they go on to say, currently each album consumption unit, which is their sort of made up unit that they use to like chart these things, they say equals 1 album sale, 10 individual tracks sold from an album, or 3,750 ad-supported or 1,250 paid subscription on-demand official audio and video streams generated by songs from an album. Lots of jargon. Let me just get through the rest. Effective for the Billboard 200 and corresponding genre album consumption charts dated January 17th. That's an important date. January 17th. Everybody remember that. Each album consumption unit will now equal, these are much cleaner numbers, 2,500 ad-supported watches or 1,000 paid or subscription on-demand watches. So this is all to say, number one, streaming is getting more popular. Is anybody in this room surprised by that? I would assume not.
Yeah, but like literally streaming your music through Pandora, Spotify. I know I sound old when I say Pandora, versus downloading the song off of iTunes or anywhere, or buying a CD and just listening it from a hard file.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even within that, they're saying that we are actually going to give these free streaming platforms even a little bit more credit, and we're going to make it even better for them. So you'd imagine YouTube's pretty happy about that, right? They're like, oh, well, it was 3-1 and now it's 2.5-1. So YouTube's like, great, we're getting more credit for what we're doing. But you have to remember who we're dealing with here. This is YouTube. YouTube is, at this point, they're at the top of their game. I mean, wouldn't you say that's fair to say they're at the top of their game?
Definitely.
They're big and they're proud and they're a little brash and they're like kind of want to stomp on everybody. Like they're almost like gloating to the fact that they're so successful.
I think that they're also getting a little bit of not FOMO, but they feel a little bit like entitled to being like a platform that's respected.
Yes.
Academy Awards, Emmys, Grammys, I mean, all the above. They should be considered in the lineup now. So when they're 2.5 versus 1, they might be like, well, what's up with that?
Yeah, shouldn't it be 1-1, right?
Yeah.
Well, so remember, Billboard made this change on December 16th. Literally 1 day later, they fired up their blog engine, and YouTube doesn't post on their blog all that much. They fired up their blog engine, and Leor Cohen, who is the byline on this, publishes this. They say, YouTube is where billions of fans worldwide connect with music, from official music videos and live streams to channels like NPR Tiny Desk. The incredible work artists do to build a community on YouTube and their massive fan engagement is being undervalued in Billboard's charts. Billboard uses an outdated formula that weights subscription streams higher than ad-supported. This doesn't reflect how fans engage with music today and ignores the massive engagement from fans who don't have a subscription. Streaming is the primary way people experience music, making up 84% of US recorded music revenue. We're simply asking that every stream is counted fairly and equally, whether it's subscription-based or ad-supported, because every fan matters and every play should count. They go on to say, after a decade-long partnership and extensive discussions, they are unwilling to make meaningful changes. Therefore, after, remember that date I asked you to remember, January 16th, our data will no longer be delivered to Billboard or factored into their charts. So they have basically said, F you, Billboard. We're not going to give you any data because you're not going to count us in a one-to-one relationship. And so suddenly this black hole of data appears on all of the music streaming on the internet, because guess what? A lot of music is streamed on YouTube. I remember, and maybe you can tell this story too, Benji, back in the day when Susan Wojcicki was like, we're actually a music app. We're not a video app. We're a music app because so many people listen to music. You have a story about Judy having a viral video because of music on the platform as well. So music is core to YouTube, right?
Yeah. Are you talking about the Beyonce,
or there was like a hairstyle thing, I think, as well.
Oh yeah, I mean so you're going way back. The Beyonce one is our oldest daughter when she was a baby just loved Beyonce's was it Single Ladies? Maybe the Single Ladies, and she would just like perk up to it, and that went viral and got on the news.
I think
like the Today Show featured it.
I love it.
And then in the very beginning, music videos were so huge that Judy did the hair look of Selena Gomez, Love You Like a Love Song. Use the thumbnail. This is a little bit old school clickbait, strategy. Doesn't work anymore.
Packaging OG.
Yeah, exactly. So she used Selena Gomez, Love You Like a Love Song, hairstyle, and then we're talking 8 to 9 million views, which was huge for us back then. So yeah, for sure. Music, I feel like what MTV used to be for music, YouTube is for music now. And to Susan Wojcicki's credit, it's even bigger than that. It's like become the radio.
100%.
Because it's free.
And the amazing thing about this, right, is like, think about the battle between these two companies. Like, why does YouTube even really care all that much? I don't even know necessarily.
Yeah, what's the word for it? I told you, it's not FOMO. It's kind of like FOMO, but it's not FOMO. And this is what, like, again, it's a little bit annoying, because if you're really the big kid on the block, why does it matter what other people do?
Just go on and do your own thing.
Yeah, in this case, this was funny. This will show that black hole of data. Probably it hurts Billboard. Probably hurts all the artists to a certain degree. So then I guess where does this story go?
Well,
like, what happened?
Guess what? If the data stops getting delivered by January 16th and Taylor Swift posts her video at the end of January and the beginning of February, why on earth would she post her stuff to YouTube in this case? Because she's not going to get credit from Billboard, which she cares about.
Yes.
A lot of artists care about. Yeah. Why would she post it to YouTube if she can harness her audience who are rabid super fans and will go anywhere to great lengths to watch her stuff when she could go to the platforms where she's going to get credit for it.
Because YouTube is still the ultimate discovery tool for a new audience or an audience that might be not a rabid, like diehard fan that like me, I'm a good example of it. I'm not like looking for Taylor Swift, but because I have daughters who are into that kind of music, if I'm listening to music on YouTube, the algorithm would suggest her new song almost always. Like if there's a new song and you're listening to like a today's hits playlist, it would suggest it versus I'm not going to seek it out.
Yeah.
The discovery. So of all types of audiences, people that don't know her at all or never listen to music, people that casually listen to her stuff, kind of listen when, it's trendy. And then of course the diehards. This was interesting. The diehards might go to Spotify to listen to her music, but guess what they're doing? Also going to YouTube. So the artist misses out on that algorithmic suggestion of listening to her music or watching her music video. You need it. I mean, this is the thing. We're talking about music, right? But still, going back to even farther back, the music video. The number one destination for watching music videos is YouTube. Wouldn't you say, Nuchili? Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that's why she ends up posting it to YouTube just a couple of days later, right? I mean, you have to imagine like 2 days, I think is what they quoted in that article. Like that's not a lot of time. Maybe it's enough to juice it enough to like get it in that 100. They must have run the numbers to some degree, right? Mm-hmm. But like I look at this from two different angles. One is from Taylor's angle, and one is from the YouTube Billboard angle. So let's start with the YouTube Billboard one because that's where a lot of the drama happened, right? For them, YouTube has effectively made it go from 3-to-1 to 2.5-to-1 to infinity to 1. You need infinite number of views on YouTube to get any credit on Billboard at all. Now, from Billboard's perspective, they must be looking at this and being like, ooh, how much do we really care about this, right? Like, are we going to capitulate to YouTube and make it 1-to-1 because we're missing all of that data? Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like, do you have thoughts on that?
I think it's like a 50-50. They kind of feel like they need it real bad. But this is kind of the pretentiousness of the old guard, the old school media, these platforms that really, in the grand scheme of things, does like a young person, like some 18-year-old fan of Taylor Swift really care if she makes it on the Billboard or not?
Probably not.
Probably not, right? Yeah. They're going wherever she's at. But then when they're on YouTube, they want to watch her music videos. That isn't determining. So for me, I've always been performance and merit, not awards and accolades when it comes to anything in life. I'd rather, I teach when I was just thinking about this, we got some new black belts. And they earned the black belt, but now they have to teach class. Mm-hmm. They have to warm up the class. They're getting a respect just because they have the black belt, but guess what? They have to earn it, right? They have to show they actually are a black belt and can lead the class. And it's just interesting observing this because they can only lean on the black belt being the title for so long. So Billboard is that same thing. Great if you make it on there because you work the system or you strategize on getting those numbers. But at the end of the day, I mean, people just care about, is your music good? And if your music is good, wherever people listen to music the most as an artist, that's where you'd want to put your music because that's where you're going to get maximum amount of listens.
And you're getting at the core of the disagreement between these two companies, which is that YouTube is thinking about it in terms of impact, culture, and reach, basically. Bottom line, watch time and view count is sort of what they care about most in this scenario, what they're advocating for when it comes to artists and creators. What Billboard cares about, and remember, this goes back to what they originally were doing, is sales, money, how they're doing it. And so what they're saying is a free view actually counts for less money than it does a paid view. Of course it does, right? That makes a lot of sense. And so for them, it depends on what their priorities are. If they're trying to get really accurate data, is it better for them to have no visibility into YouTube and miss out on that entire set of the economy, the music economy? Or is it better for them to capitulate and make a worse approximation mechanism by counting YouTube 1-to-1 with paid streaming?
That's why I say it's 50-50.
That's why
because
it's 50-50.
I can also see their side of it. Let's take out the assumption that they're pretentious and they feel almost entitled, hey, play our game or whatever. Hey, if we put these rules on you, you just have to accept it. They also don't want you to be the big bad bully, and because they're so massive, skew the numbers,
Yes.
right? Skew, and this hence why they have this 2.5 listens equals 1 listen on like Spotify. I totally understand this. So this is just kind of like a jousting match between the two, Billboard and YouTube, to kind of figure out where's the middle ground. The real question is, who needs who more?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I would say YouTube does not need that more.
Yeah.
Because Taylor Swift uploading her music video to YouTube is showing that. For Billboard to be more representative of the whole picture, they need YouTube, right? Because if they are not, then they're really only, putting people in the pecking order of the top 100 based off of not the full data. And so, yeah, YouTube, I think Billboard, I think this is like a little bit of YouTube flexing its power. Will kind of make Billboard capitulate to work by their thing. They're being the big bad bully. YouTube is right now. You know?
They are. And actually, I think that your analysis there sort of nails what the kind of closing thought is here, which is the other perspective, which is Taylor's perspective. In a lot of ways, Taylor kind of decides, not her herself, but like all of the artists and all of the creators on YouTube, right? Now, maybe YouTube does care that Taylor isn't posting her videos there on day one, because guess what? That's a lot of audience that isn't going to YouTube from the beginning. And you and I both know, we talk about this all the time when it comes to vlogs, something fresh has this untouchable value, this sort of unique value that something a little bit stale, even if it's a couple days stale, maybe doesn't, right? And so it's possible that I can imagine YouTube being like, ooh, that was a mistake. Taylor is kind of leading the way and saying, well, I care about the Billboard, so I'm going to kind of gate it from YouTube at the beginning, and then maybe we'll change our mind about it.
I can give you literally the biggest examples in so many other niches that are proving exactly why Taylor did this. Joe Rogan gets paid $100 million to go to Spotify. Guess what? He's back on YouTube and gets a second $100 million. Ninja leaves YouTube completely and goes to, what was that platform that Ninja? Mixer.
Oh, Mixer, yeah.
Gets the back. I think like also $100 million. That's like becoming a common number.
Bank, yeah.
Okay, right? That goes down. Guess what? He goes back to YouTube, right? Like he just knows that's like the first destination. And just so many people. And also just think about traditional media. You have to have, okay, I think this is the greatest example. I think Friends would be better, but I don't know enough about Friends content on YouTube. The Office continues to upload more and more content to YouTube. Now, The Office is famous for being kind of like this bingeable type of series, and people loved it. I remember I ordered Netflix so I could watch Office Unlimited until it moved away and went to where? Peacock, right? Because that was NBC and whatever.
Yep.
But even with them kind of gatekeeping the Office content, guess where you can watch a lot of it? Arguably like enough of it where you don't need Peacock on YouTube.
That's crazy.
The biggest show, the biggest gamer, the biggest podcaster did the same thing as YouTube, as Taylor Swift, which is pick YouTube in spite of all these other opportunities. That is what's crazy about YouTube. It's so massive. We've talked about this, like almost obsessed about this for vlogging, right? And long form content. YouTube's so massive. It's like you've got Earth right here. And then you got the sun. You can't even see like how big it is. That's how big YouTube is, honestly, compared to everywhere else, that it just dwarfs it. So if you're not on YouTube, you're missing out on this unknown discovery of like almost like infinite future listeners, watchers, and just fans of you. And you're limiting your success. Like Taylor Swift is limiting her ability to get more people to listen and watch her music videos.
Yeah, I mean, one way to think about it is that Earth is Taylor in this scenario. Like big, and you should care about it, right? But like YouTube being the sun is like so big that it's kind of like, yeah, maybe we care, but when it becomes a problem, we'll really start thinking about it, and it's not a problem yet.
Because let's just put this into a practical situation. If Taylor is not on YouTube, what does that person listen to other than Taylor? The closest replacement to it. There's not going to be a full replacement to it. There's going to be something else. It's like, this is why consistency as a creator is so important. If you want to get people to listen or watch your stuff, you've got to upload consistently. Because say you're like, you know what? I deserve a break. I'm going to take a month off. Totally fine. But don't go and blame, YouTube's algorithm or saying they're like throttling me or they're not putting my stuff out. Because when you went and took your month off, that person that watches your content, they don't also take a break from YouTube. They keep watching YouTube and they're going to find something else. Nothing against you. They're just like, I still need to be entertained or educated or just want something on in the background. So the algorithm suggests something, the closest thing, not just that's to your content, the thing that person might actually want to watch even more that they didn't know about because they're so committed as a loyal, right? They're not thinking rationally in that sense. They're just like, I'm so loyal to this person, but that month break can hurt you. I'm not advocating for everybody to never take a break. I'm saying this is when the downside, because YouTube's so massive, they might discover someone else, another channel, another content. And this was crazy. Taylor Swift gets put into that same little camp.
Yeah.
Right? That if
if
her music's not on there, another artist is going to get that listen and that view. And that's dangerous for her because even though she's going to be able to be fine, right? She won't be that much bigger because she's not on YouTube.
Yeah, and that's the kind of core question, which is that are these viewers, are these listeners going to the platform or are they going to the creator? And I think that it's a different answer for every person, right? And so like some people are going to YouTube and they're seeing Taylor Swift thing and they're like, oh, I love Taylor Swift, I'm going to watch her thing, right? Or maybe like, I kind of like Taylor Swift, I want to watch the thing, right? Or maybe I've never heard of Taylor Swift, but that thumbnail is kind of interesting and it has like 2 million views and I'll click it and I hear the music and now I'm a fan of hers. Or are they saying, I want to go wherever Taylor Swift is? And I think that Taylor in particular has a good following there, but she's also unique. And this is the last thing I wanted to say, which is that Taylor sort of has the experience and has the history and has done the work to create super fans that allow her to make moves like this. Not every artist would be successful if they did this. In fact, it might actually ruin some artists if they chose to use this strategy, right? But because she's built up a following that is rabid, frankly, and just a huge, deep fan base, super fans, they will kind of follow Taylor. I think that many of them are going for Taylor, but there's hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of other people who aren't going there for Taylor. They're going there for the platform.
Let's do a quick vote between the three of us. Maybe even if Carla's listening or watching. Okay, I'll vote first. Are you going for the platform YouTube or are you going for the person, any creator, any channel? 100%. When I go to YouTube, I'm going for the platform and whatever the algorithm suggests, even with long form, neutrally.
Platform.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would love to say creator, but no, it's not true. It's the platform.
What about Carla? Let's get her feedback in the comments.
Carla, I don't know if you're here.
That is crazy, though.
Yeah.
We all probably know actual YouTubers, creators, okay? We're probably fans of certain channels, all three of us. So in that case, 100% went for the platform. That is something that actually tells you why Taylor has to upload to YouTube. Because the algorithm on YouTube is so good that it's just suggesting whatever you need, even if you're looking for something very specific. We actually don't care where it comes from. I think music, probably you're more discerning. Right?
I would say so.
Right?
Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, if I found like a great song, and this is, by the way, why I love Pandora. I like when it suggests a certain type of music based off of the niche or the feel of the vibe that I'm trying to go for. So I just have all these playlists and sometimes they'll like put a new artist in front of me and I love it.
Yeah.
And then I'll hit that like button. I'm like, I want more of this. And it's just learning me. In fact, it's kind of the same way that people don't want to leave ChatGPT. That algorithm knows me so well. It's like really slow to suggest new artists, but it does it well enough that I don't even think to use YouTube Music, which I also do like too.
Yes. Yeah.
But it doesn't know me as well.
Yeah, and I think that idea of showing up often is the thing that I sort of take away from a creator's perspective, right? Your ability to show up on the platform is what gives the platform the ability to put your content in front of someone else. Like, I think the real answer to your question there, for me personally, is that I often do go to YouTube knowing that the creators that I'm trying to reach will be there. But even if they're not, the platform is good enough to find something else that I might like. And guess what? I often end up becoming super fans of them. And so it kind of guides you through this almost evolutionary process of following whatever your taste is, following whoever's available on the platform. But it does such a good job of that my answer ended up being the platform. And so showing up often as a creator is crucial because it gives you those at-bats with the algorithm to be put in front of the audience that you want to be put in front of. And that is a great opportunity to talk about one of our big pushes this year, which is about live content, and in particular, the sponsor of this episode, which is Ecamm Live, the powerful live streaming platform for Mac. Now, they've told us that it's especially good for video podcasters, educators, course creators, business owners doing webinars, workshops, trainings, and really anyone who wants polished video without the idea of overproducing. And you know that we totally believe in that too, because showing up often means that you have to not overproduce and you have to kind of work with what you've got. So any thoughts about how Ecamm has helped you show up often when it comes to content creation?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of take in a different direction today.
Please.
Recently, you sent me an article about what this celebrity said about what businesses need to do to be relevant to their customers, to their audiences, or the people they're trying to connect with. More live events. So this is in-person stuff. Why is that? Because that's the most real, raw connection you could get with another human. The only content that even comes close to that are live streams, because a live stream is in real time. It's happening right now, or at least if you're following the rules, because some people do pre-recorded stuff, but that's a whole nother discussion. And the engagement, right? The chance that you could ask a question and it gets answered by that person that's putting on the live stream is very powerful. Even if you're not the one asking the question, if it's somebody else watching, they might actually ask the same question you want. So that engagement, no edited stuff could ever compare. No pre-recorded stuff. It has to be live. And so this is why I'm doing live streaming. This has always been the case, by the way, since the very beginning. It was just harder to do live streams. What I love about Ecamm, it lets you have professional grade live streams, all the tools that you would want if you're running like a huge production studio, in your laptop. Literally, my live streams, by the way, are ran by a laptop and 2 DJI Osmo cameras. But the function that I get through Ecamm is like I was running this studio, a news studio with minimal people. I mean, I could literally run it by myself. I like to have Neutrally run it for me because then I can focus on the cooking, okay? Point is this. It lets you do professional live streams by yourself or with a minimal production, minimal team. And that's why I love Ecamm, because it's the best. It's the fastest, most simplest way to do it. And you can really level it up. And that's what we're using. In fact, I'll be doing a live stream today.
Yeah. If you want to see how it works for yourself, and you can start a free trial at the link in the show notes and use code BenjiTV15 for 15% off your first month. Again, go to the show notes. You can see the link there. You can start a free trial just to see what it's like. But if you end up purchasing, you can use that code BenjiTV15 for 15% off your first month. Thank you so much to Ecamm Live for sponsoring this show. Speaking of huge artists and their YouTube strategies, I did want to get to some follow-up because I didn't get to this topic last week when we were talking about the Super Bowl, and it's all about Bad Bunny. Now, again, there's a lot going on with what was happening at the Super Bowl. Bad Bunny was sort of a hot topic. We won't get into the politics of it because really the important thing for this show is that there's a creator angle to it as well. Believe it or not, we're in 2026. A lot of these big artists have huge intersections with YouTube and the creator space. So as you know, Bad Bunny, he went to the Grammys, won a bunch of awards, kind of was ascendant to his appearance at the Super Bowl. I mean, credit to Rock Nation and their ability to select an artist at the time where they're really kind of at their peak. It's kind of amazing. But I wanted to focus less about what has been happening in the last couple of weeks and more about the background there that kind of got him to where he was going. So I was hoping that, neutrally, we could roll a clip here that talks a little bit about what made his rise possible.
What I will say is you can't talk about the rise of Bad Bunny without talking about how he dovetails with the rise of streaming platforms. In order to be a Latin star or a Spanish language music star in the years leading up to that, primarily you're a star of radio. Part of the reason that reggaeton got sort of fossilized or ossified in a way is because people landed on a style that made sense on tropical radio, basically.
Right. They knew it would be a hit. They knew it would be played on these radio stations.
They're working almost from the hits backwards and the formulas of how to make things incredibly successful. Bad Bunny arrives. What do you have? You have YouTube as a successful distribution platform. You have SoundCloud to post your songs on. You have Spotify and Apple Music in order to get songs directly out to your listeners without having to navigate a radio infrastructure or even a major label infrastructure.
And you're saying that essentially helped facilitate this more creative, more kind of genre bending
Because there's
style.
no gatekeepers.
Right.
If he had come along 5 years earlier, he'd have to think, well, how do I get heard? I get heard by signing to a major label and by getting played on radio. I probably have to make some concessions in order to have those things happen. Whereas you come along in the mid 2010s, all of the other platforms are in place.
You know, to me, the story there is the story that we have told over and over and again on this show, which is the idea of the emergence of these online distribution platforms that took down the experience of the gatekeepers. But I'm curious about what your initial reactions are to hearing that clip about how he came to his rise through these platforms as someone who was a creator yourself that kind of experienced a similar pathway.
So this is the first Super Bowl halftime show where I didn't know any of the songs of the artist.
Oh, really?
I actually didn't really know, except for the controversy. I had never even cared or heard about Bad Bunny. I might have like overheard other people referencing it, or maybe it's come across my like listening thing. But so I have going back to Pandora, I have a today's hits.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So it's always, it's playing the top 40. It's playing whatever is popular for me. I like that. Usually if a song is good, there's a reason for it, okay? Bad Bunny's never been on that thing. So what it actually tells me is YouTube is not only so big, but the algorithm is so good at just targeting the people that would like this music, or targeting or suggesting to you what you like already, okay?
Yes.
And the fact that Bad Bunny was, well, first off, I didn't know anything. But then when I watched them, I was like, oh, I can get down with this music. And in fact, I did listen to some music. I didn't know it was him.
Huh.
Okay. To me, that's what's really interesting in reference to this audio that we just listened to, that he's so massive. There's literally videos out there where they're asking the football players, hey, so are you excited about Bad Bunny? What's your favorite song? Almost all of them didn't know what
really?
song. Yeah,
Interesting.
there's a video of this, like of players and people related to the NFL that I have no idea. I have no clue, right? Again, there's so many. There was like an alternate, like more, American artist type of Super Bowl halftime show that was happening with Kid Rock at the same time. It got a lot of attention because millions of people tuned into that thing. So the fact that this guy Bad Bunny, and literally a week before, he's almost acting like, what am I doing here? Like it's just like he's not used to being in the limelight in this way and being part of this crowd of Hollywood. And he was at the Grammys. And then he shows up at the Super Bowl party, could care less if you listen to him or not. He just put on a good show the way he would for his true fans. And so that's where I was like questioning, why would you have this guy that doesn't speak English for an audience that listens, probably majority artists that do speak English? Even if you aren't a English speaker, it's like mix, right? Or you like speak a little of the other language, and that, like K-pop is a good example. They're singing in Korean, but they also have like English lines. I would think that would be better. Like, I don't know, like BTS or what is that? Blackpink, right? I actually think those two should be a Super Bowl halftime show before like a Bad Bunny. But Bad Bunny got so massively popular, yet there is still so many people that didn't know him. That's what's crazy to me.
I think that and that's kind of where I was going with it too, because wasn't really a huge fan of Bad Bunny either. I definitely appreciated the halftime show. It's just not my style of music. But later on in that episode, they go on to talk about what else made it possible. So the lack of gatekeepers is one thing.
Yes.
But the other side of the thing is where the demand is. Who is actually the viewers and the listeners in this case? And what it did is basically the internet united all the Spanish-speaking communities scattered across the
100%.
world. And so Bad Bunny suddenly has the ability to reach every single Spanish-speaking, population. And for you and I, or at least for me, I don't speak Spanish, right? That's definitely not my first language. And so for me, I just don't intersect with that world that much. But that world is so huge that he gets a halftime show, which is crazy.
Know if this is too bold of me to say this. I bet you every single Mexican person that lives in America knows Bad Bunny. Every single person.
It'd be hard to
So,
imagine.
I mean,
someone
what is
not.
the population of that? I don't know if we want to do a quick search, but just the population
That's
of
like saying every Asian knows Jackie Chan. Like
for sure. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But one, there's a lot of, Latin people, right? People from Latin countries south of the border here. But you're right. It wasn't just the people here. It was the people in Puerto Rico and Central America and South America and all the people that have just, migrated to different corners of the earth, all listening to it. If you add that number, that's massive. That's as massive as any A-list music celebrity or singer performer in the United States. And that's a thing. It's like, not only is there no gatekeeper, the algorithm and like the usage of YouTube is so powerful, it finds all those audiences. And so he can be top person, maybe, he won the Grammys, right?
Yeah.
He won the Grammys.
just a couple days ago before the Super Bowl. Yeah.
He won the Grammys. It doesn't matter, like someone like me or you don't listen to him or didn't even know about him. His audience is big enough. And that's what I think is pretty cool. It's the first time literally a non-English using artist won the Grammys and performed at the Super Bowl. And that's just how it is. I actually think this is the beginning of this being a regular thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, so here's the research from Pew Research Center. They say that people of Mexican origin / heritage in the U.S. is about 40 million as of 2024, which is obviously a huge number, right?
Huge.
And the thing that you were saying about the audience, right, versus the gatekeepers, well, in this scenario, this is the thing that I think a lot of creators need to hear, which is that the algorithm isn't the thing that's really changing that much. Now, algorithms do change, and they can put their thumb on the scale to some degree or another, but honestly, what's the best interest of these platforms is to give the people, the viewers, the listeners, what they want the most. And the platforms that do that the best, we saw this with TikTok at the very beginning, by the way, the platforms that do that the best are the ones that end up winning. And so everybody's incentivized to do what's best for the consumer at the end of the day. And by the way, what does that mean? The audience is the algorithm, or in other words, the audience is the new gatekeeper. And because Bad Bunny is tapping into this sort of latent space over here of all of these Spanish-speaking populations that want this Latin dance music, right? He kind of is able to break the mold a little bit and reach them and say, I kind of know what you really want, and deliver it no matter whether there's someone standing between me and the audience or not.
Okay. Now we're going to go back in time.
Yeah.
A history lesson. Who is the first big Spanish-speaking artist to ever make it big on mainstream? And I'll just be very specific, on the radio in the United States.
I don't know, actually.
La Bamba.
Oh, La Bamba.
La Bamba. Okay. So why do I bring him up? The only reason he got so massive is because somebody decided, hey, we're going to put this guy's music on the radio and people will listen. He bridged the gap between a Spanish speaking audience, Mexicans or, anybody that understands what he's talking about, and the broader audience. But there was a gatekeeper that had to make the decision.
They had to say yes.
Fast forward 30 years. When was La Bamba came out? Like 90s maybe, or whatever, maybe late 80s. I don't know. Fast forward, there's no gatekeeper. Okay. YouTube is the radio, and it doesn't matter that everyone doesn't know him, right? There's just enough people using YouTube that audience is so massive that he's bigger than what I would perceive as the top people in the music industry. And I had no clue about him.
Yeah. And so I think that's the bottom line, which is that if you kind of are true to yourself and you know that there's an audience out there to watch and listen, there's going to be a pond of your own that you can make and be the biggest fish in. And that's how you win in the modern era, actually in pretty much all of the internet era, but especially in 2026.
I'm glad you brought that up because we're talking about Taylor Swift,
Yeah.
Bad Bunny. We're talking about A-list celebrities. What's crazy is that the person in the middle of nowhere that no one knows can be playing the same game at the same level with less resources, with no team, all by themselves, just vlogging, and get a huge audience. Potentially as big as them. There's people look at PewDiePie,
Yeah.
right? Look at Mr. Beast. These guys, I mean, PewDiePie is more of like a one-man band kind of show. Maybe he's got a tiny little team. Mr. Beast, huge production, huge team. But the point is this, those two don't necessarily have like a singing or acting skill that would even compare to, those other people, yet they got so massive.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about, hey, if you're listening to this and you love crocheting, right? That is your thing. And you make some cool crochets. Like you make crochets out of like, I don't know, leather yarn or something like that. And it's like, you make these cool little pieces. I don't know if that's a real thing. There's an audience out there that might be into this stuff. And the only thing stopping you from being well known to not being known at all is you creating the content, uploading to YouTube, and letting the algorithm do all the heavy lifting. This is one of the biggest takeaways I ever got from YouTube, period, is I talked to the guy that runs the product, the algorithm, the people that think about discovery. And he said, our number one job at YouTube for creators is to make it so easy that you don't have to be an expert at YouTube. You're just good at creating content, and then YouTube does the rest.
Yeah.
This is why tags aren't a thing anymore. Even Judy made the observation, the description, not as big of a deal.
That's true.
She's noticing that live shopping is the thing, right? What is the most important thing on YouTube when it comes to a viewer?
The content.
The content. And as a creator, if that's what you're good at, YouTube would be doing a disservice to both the viewer and the creator to make it so that you have to know about all these things.
That's very true.
So, of course, we're talking about these people that have huge teams that do all the things for them, right? Bad Bunny's not editing his music videos, and, Taylor Swift ain't hitting that upload button. But what I'm saying is now, as a creator, and this is why live streams are interesting, you don't have to even edit.
Yeah,
Because the
that's
algorithm
true.
can find you the exact audience. This is why even though my live streams right now are getting less views, what it's slowly doing is finding that audience and is growing week to week, little by little. And just over time, it's going to know exactly who these cooking live streams are for. I've seen this. The difference is it's happening a lot faster than growth happened 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, and it's all because of the algorithm. And actually, one of the things we talk about is that idea of the gatekeepers falling. And I tend to think that what happens first in music then happens everywhere else, right? So what could be a bigger representation of those old cultural gatekeepers than something like a movie theater, right? Which brings us back to Netflix, one of the other things we talked about last week. So last week we talked a lot about how Ted Sarandos, one of Netflix's CEOs, going up on stage and defending Netflix's acquisition of Warner Brothers around like these kind of monopoly concerns in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And one of the other things we talked about was how Ted wanted to frame the competition as a competition with YouTube, right? He's saying that we are number one competitor with YouTube in particular. And what we ended up deciding was that it made more sense for Netflix to move up the market, not compete with YouTube, and do things like compete in those movie theaters than it did to move down market and try and like acquire a bunch of podcasts, for example, and do all of those things. And so even though they're hedging their bets and doing all those things related to podcasting, one way that they're moving up market is by buying Warner Brothers. Right. So they're like, oh, we're literally going to buy like one of the oldest like production studios in
Netflix,
Hollywood.
right?
Yeah, Netflix is going to. And so one of the reasons they want to buy Warner Brothers, though, is because they want to take theaters seriously. Now, when the deal between Netflix and the Warner Brothers studios was announced, pretty much everybody kind of reacted. And you'll remember this from way back when we were originally discussing this. Everyone reacted by declaring that the theater was dead. And for, I think, pretty good reason, because for many years, Netflix's CEOs have constantly been saying that they think that the theater business is pointless. That's like sort of useless. There's no reason to have live and in-person events. But what were you saying earlier in the show, Benji?
That people want to connect in person with things, including like a entertainment, right? Like in this case, movies.
Exactly. And so there's another piece of this, which is that as the streaming wars went on, the information around the value of these theaters started to kind of get more and more cloudy, right? So Prime was actually the first one that realized that the movies that they were putting into theaters ended up performing better on streaming after the fact.
Oh.
And of course, you'll remember a lot of this was happening during COVID when the beginning of this desire to connect in person was starting to happen. And so there was this kind of haze of confusion surrounding all of this stuff.
I'll just tell you
era.
why.
Yeah.
A movie is always better in a movie theater than any living room.
That's so true. I mean, because for so many reasons.
You tend to less check your phone too when you're at a movie theater because, I mean, literally, there's a practical reason. The bright screen, you don't want to bother other people. Also, you paid money to be in the movie theater. You've got popcorn. You kind of have everything you need for this movie, and you're mentally committing. Versus when you watch any movie at home, you could be distracted by your device. You might go up and get some snacks, and it's just playing, and it's not nearly as, I mean, if you have a screen that big at home, good for you, man. You're doing good in life, right? But 99.999% of people have a 50 to, I mean, nowadays, like 80, 90-inch screen TV.
Yeah.
It's puny compared to that one. So that makes sense that if you watch on a big screen and you have this experience that you enjoy so much, you're more likely to not only watch it again at home, maybe even buy it.
That's very true. I didn't even think about that.
Versus at home, you might buy it. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I never buy a movie, or I try not to, when it's $20 on Amazon Prime. I'm waiting till it's like the $5.99 special, right? And again, so I might not even value it that much.
Well, and from Netflix's perspective, right, they just want to get you subscribed and keep you subscribed to the platform. Like their goal is very similar to YouTube's in that way.
Well, because it's on that subscribe platform, movies have this perception of not being that valuable.
Exactly. And so on top of all of that, as the deal news started to come out throughout January, there's something that Ted Sarandos kept marching around. I kind of followed him around his media circuit. He kept saying on all of these media circuit pieces, which is well, I'll just go ahead and read from Nicole Sperling's article from the New York Times on January 16th. So this is not too long after the deal closed. She says, or she actually quotes him saying, the general economics of the theatrical business were more positive than we had seen and we had modeled for ourselves. When this deal closes, we will own a theatrical business engine that is phenomenal and produces billions of dollars of theatrical revenue that we don't want to put at risk. We will run that business largely like it is today, with 45-day windows, which means that there's movies in the theaters for 45 days before they're anywhere else. I'm giving you a hard number. If we're going to be in the theatrical business, we're competitive people. We want to win. I want to win opening weekend. I want to win the box office. So he's going around and saying this. And so at the time, because I'm kind of sympathetic to Netflix in this regard, I think that they're a well-run company. My instinct was to believe those CEOs of Netflix and what they were saying about the theaters, even while everyone else was kind of crying wolf, so to speak. And so I had believed that they had changed their mind about theaters and they wanted to compete in theaters, but that recently, even more came out during that Senate hearing. This gets us back to where we were talking about it last week, that I think doubles down on this and points to something else that's happening about that competition between Netflix and YouTube, since that's such a topic on this show. So this is from Todd Spangler at Variety, who we quoted from last week. He says, Sarando said Netflix and YouTube are competing for the same content, viewers, and ad dollars. And the exec pointed out to Iron Lung, a self-financed movie from YouTube creator Markiplier, which led the box office over the weekend. And so he's saying, this is what Ted Sarandos is saying, is YouTubers like Markiplier are out there. These creators are starting to create their own movies and competing with us even in movie theaters as well. And so I'm curious about what you think about that, because we've talked a lot about the creator camp and their Two Sleepy People movie. And now Markiplier has this relatively successful horror movie that he releases in movie theaters as well. They're using their own influence to serve as the marketing arm, basically, for these films. And so what do you think about Ted Sarandos saying that because YouTubers are releasing movies in theaters, Netflix is competing with YouTube?
I think that Netflix is competing with YouTube, period.
Yeah.
Now, the example of using the movie theater as a reason, to me, is just like, it's just trying to find an excuse to argue their point. You know what's funny? Think about movie theaters. You can't deny movie theaters don't play as big of a role when it comes to media and entertainment as it once did.
Yeah.
Like movies.
Oh, period. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, how many movies have shut down? Movie theaters have shut down, and it's kind of like malls.
Yeah.
There was way more malls back in the day, and now there's just only a few malls.
Let me just ask you this: when was the last time you guys went to the movies?
I know it's been a long
And then
time.
what did you
2 weeks
guys-
ago.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember what I saw.
I can't even remember the last time I went to the movie theater. It's
Yeah.
so it's not very often, and I could watch a trailer and be like, okay, I'm watching that, and in my mind I had it like scheduled. Like when that comes out, either the day it comes out or the day after or that weekend, I'm gonna watch it. I haven't done that forever. The last time I can think of where I did that was Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And I had to wait 3 years because it was during the pandemic, and Tom Cruise literally insisted, we are not going to put this out in streaming, even if we have to wait year after year after. It became comical. Okay, so the reason I'm bringing this up is movie theaters have become so uncommon that now it's novel.
Yeah, that's true.
Now going to the movie theater is special again because
Yep.
you're going to go there to watch it. So the movie theater still carries a certain prestige. So what's interesting, because I've always wondered, like, why would these creators on YouTube go to Netflix, go to these other platforms if YouTube is the biggest thing? There is a prestige in the movie theater. So think about it, what I just said. If watching a movie at your home theater, and this just could just simply be a TV connected to these apps, isn't nearly as engaging, as fun, and as valuable as watching at the movie theater, you have to say the same thing about YouTube content.
Yeah, that's true.
Even though we watch YouTube content, you want to talk the biggest distraction, a notification while you're watching a YouTube video. The fact you can go to another app while you're listening to this YouTube content, right? So even if you play YouTube on the TV, but if Markiplier has a piece of content that his fans want to watch at the movie theater, the same principles still apply to that content that like a blockbuster movie like kind of like assumes, which is you're going to be less distracted. You're going to buy popcorn, so your snacks and your drinks are all accounted for, and you're probably less likely going to be on your phone. I'm sure there's people that are on their phone still, but for the most part, if you have to pay money, guess what? That there's some value there you don't want to like waste.
Yeah.
So by the way, this is kind of going off topic. What I'm saying is the movie has a value now that is kind of like it's back.
Yeah.
Like the movie theaters are back, but it's different. So Netflix having to compete with YouTube because YouTuber creators are on there. I mean, I think that's like valid, but you don't need that argument to be able to say YouTube and Netflix are competing for your attention, period.
Yeah, I agree.
So they're competitors. That's what
I
I'm saying.
feel like, just going back to that where YouTube just wins, because I feel like with Netflix and movies in generals, it's such a high stakes about the money and the return for box office, right? Like their reason they're in the movies because they need to make their money back on the ticket sales.
Yeah.
But compared to YouTube, you can have a low budget but still get the same viewership as those blockbuster movies.
Yeah, you're hitting on the thing that I wanted to bring up before we get to the next topic, which is that I think that the best argument that the government has here in this scenario, or that actually creators have generally in terms of like where they're at competitively in terms of comparison to like Netflix versus YouTube, is that the business model is different between the two. Now, if you think about a YouTuber, they're sort of speculatively creating these videos, hoping they get enough views to make back the money that it costs to create them, right? Which is why you get like why low budget content, which is why we created Vlogging Academy, actually, right? Because we think that really low budget, easy to produce content has tons of space to flourish on YouTube because YouTube is the new daytime TV, right? Now, on the other end of things, what about for movies? Why does it cost so much money to make, or why do movies not end up on YouTube? You ask this question a lot, Benji. I think it's because they cost so much money to make up front, right? You have to front a huge bill. Like you look at Creator Camp and what they did with Two Sleepy People, they had to get a bunch of sponsors basically to just give them money for them to even have a chance at making the movie, let alone distributing it in theaters, right? Markiplier saved up a bunch of money by being a super successful creator and self-funded his own movie to be put in these movie theaters. But it requires that huge amount of margin, basically, that you've built up over time or have been bequeathed by somebody to create these movies that then make it to the movie theaters, then can go either to streaming platforms or YouTube or Netflix or whatever. And that is the role that Netflix plays in this environment, which is that they kind of give a bunch of money up front, let you create this big kind of epic piece of work, and then let it release onto Netflix, which to me, because that business model is different, is a distinction with a difference, not without a difference, because that is what separates YouTube from Netflix in my mind. What do you think about that?
Yeah. The upfront cost.
The upfront cost, yeah.
100%. Yeah, it's interesting. Again, at the end of the day, why do creators want to be on Netflix? Why do they want to release their content at the movie theaters? Why do they want to go beyond YouTube? They want the prestige and the power.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I feel like it's more or less bragging rights too, just to say I'm on Netflix.
Yeah, it's just different to say you're a movie star, right, or a Hollywood star than it is to say you're a YouTuber. I love YouTubers, right? I've dedicated my whole life and business to my favorite creator, my wife, as well as being a creator and serving other creators. I think you don't need anything else. But when you rise to the top, like Markiplier is a good example of this, you're like, what is next?
That's true.
What is even bigger than YouTube? And it is going to be Hollywood. It is going to be the movie theater. It is going to be, I mean, like Netflix is part of all that. And then, of course, this was funny. We just talked about upfront costs, right? There's money, right? If you release it, there's sponsors that are willing to pay for it versus would they be willing to pay for that same content to be released on YouTube?
Potentially no.
I mean, yeah, potentially. So it's different.
It is different.
It's different. And I mean, all this being said, it's funny. We talk about this sometimes at the live stream. It's like, what's the point of like really figuring out why they're doing this? The only thing a creator needs to know is YouTube is so massive that Netflix even cares about them.
That's very true.
YouTube is so massive that a creator on YouTube going to release something at the movie theater is a topic of conversation.
I mean, think about talking about that in 2008. Wouldn't have even been a topic of discussion. Wouldn't have even been thought to be possible at that time.
Even the topic we talked about earlier, Taylor Swift not uploading to YouTube right away and then uploading is like, why? Like, that is a conversation. No one cared about this 20 years ago, right? Even 10 years ago, 5 years ago really was when people started thinking, YouTube is actually maybe bigger than we thought. We were there that year at VidCon, the biggest creator convention, listening to Susan Wojcicki, which is kind of cool that we were there and seeing this. She had her PowerPoint and she's talking about this is how much money is on traditional media, on TV, Hollywood films, and that's the attention they get. This is the viewership, and this is YouTube, almost equal attention but way less money, and this. Thinking like back then, like YouTube still wasn't being taken seriously, even in 2015 when we went there. Might have been even 2016. Fast forward a decade, and now it's like Netflix has to convince the government we're not a monopoly here. You got this thing even bigger than us.
YouTube,
right?
yeah,
right. Like you think about a senator just sitting there, like, okay, yeah, so YouTube creators are on the movie theater. Like, what are we even talking about? Like. Again, I'm just trying to fast forward, and we got some other things we want to talk about. If you're a creator, even if you're not yet, all you need is YouTube. That's what I'm trying to say. I think that TikTok, Instagram, other platforms have their opportunities, and like for certain niches, like you can go for obviously short form, everything. But YouTube has YouTube Shorts, right? You can accomplish everything you need to accomplish to get your start on YouTube. And that's what's crazy. And now they're not just watching on their phones and their laptops or their computers. They're watching on the TV. And you could be all day viewing and be a person talking in your car on your phone and become famous and make a living doing it. That's all you need to know. Versus before, if you were famous on YouTube, you really had to hustle. You might upgrade your camera. You might like get better editing. You might do this and that. And we've seen that evolution happen like 2 or 3 times in the last 20 years. Now it's just like, a new era.
It is a new era.
I call it the new era because it is not anything that we have ever fathomed. That's why all these topics, all this news coverage is happening because they don't even know how to read it.
Yeah, it's
pun intended.
It's a totally new era, and in those ways, and that's why we bring it up on these shows, right? Because like to me, I think about the people who like want to get into Hollywood or want to get into broadcast and things like that, and to me, I'm like, well, it makes a lot of sense to go the traditional routes. You want to go, and maybe you'll go into these casting rooms, right? Or you'll pitch somebody in Hollywood. You'll find yourself on the sets and things like that. There's a new pathway as well, which is that you could build your own following on YouTube and find your way, all from posting from your bedroom with a camera on top of shoeboxes, all the way up to creating and self-funding your own feature film that gets released and is featured by Ted Sarandos in the middle of a Senate hearing because they really want to merge with Warner Brothers just so they can barely compete with YouTube in terms of attention. And, I think one of the amazing things here is that this wave of creativity is been enabled by a ton of things. One of them are these platforms. One of them is the internet. But one of them is actually just the presence of gear, gear that's widely available. And, Benji, as a vlogger for a decade and a half at this point, you've been leading the charge in evangelizing the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 for vloggers because you've dealt with lots of cameras and you use these cameras a lot. And, the Osmo, of course, is a great camera. And, you talk a lot about how it's pocketable. It's
Pocketable? You just made a new word. That's cool.
It's the complete package. It has everything that you wish that you'd had in other vlogging cameras.
Everything.
But of course, it can get a little expensive sometimes. Sometimes it depends on how you're looking at it. But because it's so popular, it has its knockoffs, right? So we've been talking about this since October, that there's this other camera called the Xtra Muse, which is a knockoff of the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. And back in December, when Neutrally got one, we gave you the chance to give your first impressions, which were kind of scathing, if I'm being honest at the time, about it versus the Osmo Pocket 3. Now, the biggest issue in my eyes that we identified was that it did not work with the DJI mic ecosystem, which was kind of key to your love for the Osmo. But because of that, we posted a video and we got lots of feedback saying that there was a workaround. Use the receiver. And actually, if you're looking at the video right now, Neutrally has one dongled on the back. It's kind of like I'm not going to say that on camera. Now, we rejected that feedback because we still tend to think that the key to a great vlog camera is how little it gets in your way. And that's just another thing to get in your way when you have to plug something in, check the levels, make sure it's connected properly.
That's all you need to say. Yeah. I'm going to run.
But some people still disagreed, and that was okay. But more interesting than that are the comments that we've been getting over the last couple of days. So the first one that I saw was from @JulianGarrett on YouTube. First of all, thanks, Julian, for giving us a comment. They say, wireless connection is now available in the new firmware update. I have connected what I have, DJI Mic Mini, and it connects automatically after the initial pairing. He then goes on to say you can use it for all these other reasons why. And so guess what we did today? Neutrally came into the studio. He pulled up his DJI Xtra Muse. I'm not DJI, his Xtra Muse, and we pulled out the DJI mic as well, which I think Benji has, and we plugged in a. Actually, we didn't even plug anything in. We just connected the phone, right, and gave an update, right, Neutrally?
It was just through the Xtra Muse app on the iPhone, and right when I connected, it just prompted the software update.
Just like on a DJI Osmo, even though that's not the brand.
Yeah. And so it connected exactly the same. Within moments, it was connected up here. It gave you the levels at the top of the screen, and we haven't recorded with it yet. So next week, we'll do an actual review of it once we've had a chance to test it out and everything like that. But Benji, I'm curious about if that is going to have any change in your opinion about the Xtra Muse. If it works.
I definitely think so. Because one of the underrated aspects of content creation right now on just any platform is the audio. Everyone was focused on the video. Everyone wanted, it to look crispy and cinematic maybe, and they were just upping their editing and their production. But the audio always was kind of secondary, unless you were a professional and you're using a shotgun mic or a lapel mic or whatever. But that took extra time and took extra effort. Why audio is important is for two reasons. One, people are letting videos play and they're not even watching it. They're listening to it. So ASMR, I think, proved this. The better your audio is, the better the viewing experience, ironically, even though you're listening to it. It's like hitting a sense that we never really cared to make important to YouTube, right?
Yeah.
The second part is just how easy to get good audio. So set aside the DJI mic. Mics are just getting smaller. They're getting more affordable, and they're getting easier to use. But most mics, you needed a receiver. Like Neutrally's Xtra Muse has to have what I'm making fun of it, the dongle, right? But that's the receiver. You plug it into USB-C, and then you can use a mic, which, to be fair, is tiny, right? The one that furry thing on there makes it look like it's really big. The DJI mics, what's crazy about is it doesn't need a receiver. It just connects. Thank you, Neutrally. It connects right into the camera directly. No receivers needed. You don't even need this bottom part. So like just the form factor of it, it's just so small. And then this is, clipped over here on my shirt. And then this could be anywhere away. Like I could be holding it like this. I could have it away from me. I've done this at Costco where I'll put it on a shelf across the aisle. Okay. This is usually when there's not a lot of people walking around, and I'll be speaking into the mic at normal audio levels, and it catches it like I was sitting right next to it. That's the whole point of the mic. But I didn't need a receiver. It was easy to connect. I didn't even really need to know anything about audio. It's like all automated. That's what was powerful. And you couldn't do that on the Xtra Muse. You couldn't use a DJI mic because it's not a DJI product, even though it looks just like it. So this software update, making it so you can use these mics. You can buy the cheaper version of the DJI Osmo, which is an Xtra Muse, and buy the DJI mics, which actually are really affordable. If you get the DJI mic mini, which I actually did lose, my friend Matt gave it to me.
Oh, no.
And I like shamefully told him, he's like, oh, okay, it's okay. I lost the first one because they're so small that you lose them. Point is this. It connects to that. So when you ask me the question, does it make a difference in how I perceive it? I still think the actual DJI product is a better build. It's better engineering. I know this feel and the weight and everything, and I've literally like tested it out. But if you want to save a few $100s and you don't have the money, but you also want to use a DJI mic, you can because of the software update. Big game changer. In fact, like for Neutrally, for example, I mean, these are getting so cheap now. He could get one of these, get rid of the dongle. Nobody wants a dongle, okay? There's a reason why Apple brought back the SD card. I just got a new laptop. It has an SD thing, which I love. I haven't used it yet. I've been using a dongle for like 7 years now. I can't wait to like insert the SD card and get that crispy little whoop, you know, instead of having that extra part. When it comes to content creation and being a creator, you don't want friction. You don't want extra parts. I literally carry everything I need in this tiny laptop. I heard like a girl this weekend at this family thing, like one of the cousins. They're saying, oh, I can't use a small fanny packs because they don't fit everything I need. I need the double size one. And I was listening to this going like, actually, you can fit everything in one thing, right? They weren't referring to content creation or cameras, but it was just funny. I can because this collapses into such a small little thing. I don't need a dongle. And look how big this mic. And this is their big mic. They have a smaller mic. And look, it clips into this little clip. Okay, going back to what I'm saying. Yes, it's a big deal that the Xtra Muse, which is cheaper, can use a DJI mic because now it's more affordable to have everything you got with DJI with another product that is similar enough that you can do that for people that can't afford the price tag of the DJI.
How far does it get you there? So like if you imagine that pretty much, everything else is the same. How far, like 60%, 100%?
99%.
It gets you 99%. The microphone's that important.
Yes.
Wow. And so the 1% remaining is like the build quality and stuff like that.
The build quality. I haven't tested it out.
Yeah.
Like if I tested it out. Now I'm telling you, already that 1% is a big 1% because just the way it feels that again, the engineering, the way it feels, all that kind of is like a little bit janky. So maybe to be fair, it's not 99%, maybe it's like 92%, right? But still, I always say like you just need something to be 80%. So if you're saving a lot of money, it gets you there, use it and use it as much as you can until you get to the point where you can get the professional stuff. What matters is like, can you create content?
Yeah.
And you probably can, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Neutrally has been using it just fine.
I filmed something today. And Austin, just to go back to your question, what is the Pocket 3 going for as of right now? Because I guess the question is, since the Xtra Muse can take the DJI wireless mic, the difference between the two devices is basically very little now. So is it worth that extra dollar amount?
Yeah, it's always hard to pinpoint an exact number for the Xtra Muse and the Osmo because they're both constantly fluctuating. I see an Osmo 3 right now available for $440 at B&H. So that's pretty good actually right now. Now, Xtra Muse, I'm having a harder time finding in terms of the actual sale options.
Well, yeah, you can get the creator combo, which is really what you want with the microphone for $569. Wow, B&H Photo, that is the best place to get it right now.
Yeah,
we should put a link in the description.
That's a deal for the
that's a
creator
good
combo
right now for sure. Well, why is it cheaper right now? Because DJI is going to put out the Osmo Pocket 4, which of course is going to be better. There's no reason to put out a 4 unless it is going to be better. That's why I'm actually further excited, not just for the Pocket 3, but even the Xtra Muse. That'll probably go down
in terms of price.
I think so. It's going to have to compete. So how much you get the Xtra Muse for? Just what was the last price that you remember?
$300.
Really?
That was pretty good.
For reals?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, even if that goes to like $250, for $250, you're ready
off
to
to the
go.
races,
You're off the races. Even better value than your phone because oftentimes the phones that would be comparable to this are going to be like $700, $800, $900, right?
At
or
least.
a grand.
Yeah.
So that is, I'm telling you, what's interesting about this, I think the last thing I'll say about the DJI Pocket 3, the Osmo Pocket 3, it changed the game for the shape and the form factor of a camera. Think about this. I mean, we have a camera over there. You can give it to me if you want. This is the shape the camera has been for what, 50, 60 years? Like even the small ones. So
Yeah, those point and shoot consumers.
Yeah, horizontal, kind of a wide body.
even
meant
the
to be
nice
gripped
ones.
Sideways.
I'm not going to grab my DJI because or my
Sony's.
A7s because but they're the same thing. It hasn't had any innovation. DJI innovated it, and now there's copycats of it for a good reason because people, it's so useful. It's so, but I don't even grab these anymore. The only time I have these type of cameras is if my wife is using the Canon G7X, and that's all around. But I'm 100% going for this. The one downside is the lens, is the glass. There's less glass on it.
No optical zoom.
Yeah, optical zoom. So that would be like one thing I would definitely pay attention to if the 4 had the optical zoom. But this is old. This is like, I actually think a lot of these companies, and you're seeing this, right? Because other companies like, what is that one? The Insta360.
Yeah. Yep.
And there's other companies that are kind of creating
They're like smaller
cameras.
format nowadays.
Yeah, different shape.
Yeah.
Just different shape are coming out because this to me just makes so much sense. It's just a handle and you can do so much with it. And the bottom being flat like this, especially if you have the tripod, makes it just so much more functional for when you want to place it somewhere. Because even this is a good example. This is not steady at all. This is one of our original. This is called the Canon ELPH 110 HS. And it's flat enough to put somewhere, but it's very unstable. This, super stable. I put this on the edge of a stadium when we're eating.
Well, unless you have Judy
windy
skills
stadium.
to make a custom
don't
tripod,
even
you'll
get me
be all right.
started. Okay, anyway, so I think that...
So 90% of the way there.
Yes.
Well, the other thing that I wanted to talk about was...
So I don't need to read all these comments telling me, yes, you can. Like, okay, cool, man. We can use a DJI on the Xtra Muse.
Actually, one other note too, which is that, one thing to consider here is the idea of a firmware update and access. If we know that DJI has some issues with getting firmware updates, it's proven now that Xtra Muse is getting, major firmware updates that are
Skirting
changing.
the rules.
They're kind of skirting the rules. So just something to note as we go forward here. Let's finally get to the one topic for today, which is a announcement from YouTube that talks about their finances. Now, you asked earlier in the show, Benji, from a creator's perspective, why should they be caring about these things? And to me, the reason you care about these sort of big picture, Titan level battles happening in the industry is that whoever's succeeding is the boat you probably want to be on. That's at least how I look at things. And so one of the things is that we know YouTube's succeeding, and now finally we know the extent to which they're succeeding because they finally, for the first time ever, released their entire revenue report. Did you know they've never released their revenue before?
YouTube?
Yeah, never.
Oh.
They released their ad revenue, but never their entirety of their revenue.
Okay. Well, it's probably finally impressive.
So,
That's the only reason you wouldn't before.
well, one of the reasons actually I think is because they were trying to keep it secret from competitors, and actually I think the not the FCC, I'm forgetting maybe the SEC was asking them to disclose it. And so anyway, from Liv McMahon at the BBC, they say Google has revealed YouTube brought in more than $60 billion in revenue in 2025 as the firm targets getting more subscribers. The figure, which totals the money generated through advertising on YouTube as well as paid subscriptions, far surpasses streaming rival Netflix's $45 billion in revenue. It appears to be the first time Google has individually highlighted its video platform's yearly revenue since acquiring it in 2006. And for context here, one of the things that they're revealing is that I think that there's a $40 billion ad base there and about $20 billion in subscriptions. So that's YouTube's split right there. And so the interesting piece is that we know that their ads have been doing well year over year, but more and more YouTube cares about their subscription model, both for YouTube TV and proper YouTube Premium. And that's about half of what their ads bring in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you mean just the revenue is bringing?
Yeah.
Half of the revenue is YouTube Premium or YouTube TV.
Well, a third of their revenue. It's
Got it.
it's half of their ad revenue. So for $20 billion for the subscription, $20 billion for the ads.
Got it.
Yeah. And so compared to Netflix, you're looking at these numbers and like just the ad revenue alone is beating Netflix's value there. But it shows you just how much YouTube is changing things. And I just wanted to bring it up because it's interesting to see those numbers as a split, right?
Well, I think we just talked about how one of the things that makes YouTube appealing is it's free. But YouTube has risen in terms of its value where it's worth it to pay for it. There's this famous video that went viral of the guy like watching YouTube videos at his friend's house and seeing an ad. He's like, oh, I didn't know I was hanging out with a bunch of poor people or whatever, right? It's just a joke, right? Like, I don't think that. But it's funny. I have YouTube Premium. So when I'm watching on somebody else's YouTube window and there's an ad, in my mind, I'm like, man, I haven't seen an ad for so long because it's so good. It's so worth it to pay for the YouTube Premium that YouTube, going back to what we talked about, is competing against other paid streaming services like a Netflix, right?
Yeah.
Or even an Amazon or Apple TV. And that's just the beginning. I think what's important is that people are spending real money on YouTube. We're talking about how when I do the live streaming, we need to do the YouTube shopping tools because people, I'm cooking a lot and a lot of the questions like, hey, what knife do you use? What pan do you use? And I'm going to have all that lined up.
What ingredients?
All the time.
Yeah. And so people are not only paying for YouTube Premium, they're ready to shop. They're ready to spend money on whatever you're talking about. We know this because brand deals have been a thing. You know, you click the link, you go buy the food service. You click the link, you buy the appliance, you buy whatever. You might go to follow this person on their website and then sign up for the email newsletter. But more commerce is happening. And I don't like, I was joking, like maybe it wasn't good enough to report publicly, but also now they're like, hey guys, you can make some serious coin here, not just like hear it from other creators or hear some reports about who's making this much and full time. Now it's like, it's continuing to grow. The YouTube shopping to me, I think is really significant because that's what made TikTok viable.
That's true.
What made that work for creators when there was no ad revenue. There was no like AdSense like platform or tools. So the only way you made money on TikTok was either brand deals, which is significant on all platforms, or the shopping because you get a commission. And I hear crazy numbers about how much people are making on there. $500,000 just from like doing random videos about products around their house.
Yeah.
And then people are clicking that buy button and making the purchase. And then you get a commission from that. Where did this work first? Amazon on YouTube.
That's true.
So now if it's coming on there, all that being said, I mean, like I talked about this book, YouTube Secrets, still, because we wrote it so that it would be a classic. It would stand the test of time. And we have the 7 C's of YouTube success. And one of them is cash, for cash flow. How do you monetize? What's your business model? And that's the thing. If you can make more money on YouTube, it makes more sense to create content on YouTube. This is why Hollywood can't compete with it because there's so many people willing to do it with no promise of revenue. So if there's even more opportunities for revenue, that's huge. And then YouTube showing in the numbers that, hey, more and more people value us enough where they're paying for their premium subscription. So that's just the beginning. Because if they're willing to pay that much, they might be willing to buy products on there as it becomes more trusted. Again, great for creators because it means it's more viable to create this content, take that risk.
100% agree. Let's get to some AskCSP, and we got a couple from some creators that are close to us. And I love these questions because every week we try and answer some questions of creators or just anybody who's getting started on YouTube. But I wanted to start out with this. 18 years, that's the end goal. That's crazy. We're in the middle of a lot of change right now. The major question you probably get a lot is how to move or turn your short form content into long form. I don't want to say that we've been consistent on long form just yet on our channel due to short form videos. When we got on TikTok, it kind of blew up overnight. We didn't have management right away and had no clue what influencing/content creating was. Flash forward going into our 4th year, we're just now putting YouTube as a priority. We're slowly moving into long form, but currently capping our videos at 10 minutes. Do you have any insight or tips about forming systems and implementing them into the process of creating content and posting? What do you think?
Yeah, so basically the question that a lot of short form creators ask, which is how do I take what I do on short form so well and convert that into a long form content strategy? they don't say in the question, but part of it is like, and still keep my sanity. How do I like stay consistent? How do I keep doing the thing that is successful for me, maybe on TikTok, right? And then also do that on YouTube, but for long form. It starts actually even before you even like talk about what content you're going to create, what's your long form strategy. It talks about your time as a creator right now. If you're already working your butt off, and I know a lot of creators that do short form that are uploading so much, they don't have extra time for a long form strategy. So that's already a problem. So I can tell you the best thing to do. This is the strategy you should utilize. This is kind of how you should allocate your time. This is how often you should upload. But if you don't have any time to do that, then what's the point of me telling you?
True.
You have to kind of reassess, like, do I even have bandwidth? And if you don't, like, how do you get bandwidth? By the way, this is part of the problem with short form. It's like you're on a hamster wheel and you're just like that wheel is spinning so fast, it's smoking, right? It's literally smoking. The hamster is like sprinting and just like, how do I get off of it? That is the real question. And I think it starts actually by valuing your time. Like, you literally need to start thinking like, how much is an hour of my time worth as a creator? How much do I make in a year and divided by all the hours I work? I just gave you one of the ways I start figuring out your rate, by the way, for when you do brand deals or do anything in life. And then just start thinking like, what are tasks? What are like even like social media, pieces of content or just anything I do in my life that's not really living up to that per hour value that you can either give up, not do, because really it's not serving you, it's not serving your business and not serving your bigger purpose, or can you delegate to someone? By the way, there's a ton of things you can do to free up more time, but you need to free up more time because the thing is, just like short form took a lot of effort and work to work for you and to be successful as a short form creator, long form's the same way. I would say a little bit, like in some cases, more time, especially if you've never done it before. Because I don't know are you going to be able to transition over? Now, what's unique about these creators? They are successful at live streaming. Like really good. We're talking like 50,000, 70,000, 100,000 views. And these are like 1 to 2, 3 hours. That is probably the easiest way to get into long form, by the way. Side note, okay? So number one, it's like figuring out what do you do with your time to be successful? How do you give yourself more time to be able to do the long form strategy? Now, like, let's attack that question head on though, about like what type of content do I do that's complementary or going to be representative of what my audience wants? Before I do all that, just realize that your short form audience might not watch your long form. That's just the way it is.
Yeah,
they
true.
might be watching short form because that's what they want. So there isn't like this direct translation in terms of views. A lot of people have proven this. But that's probably one of the mistakes people make also. They just think, hey, I'm going to do an extension of this and it's going to be all good. So think like 2 or 3 minute vertical videos on YouTube, right? 2 or 3 minute ones. Or the worst is when you do a vertical video in a horizontal landscape kind of thing. You have the big black bars. No, that's not what they signed up for when they're going to YouTube wanting to watch long form. That's horizontal. Okay. I think one of the easiest ways that like translate those is ask yourself or literally ask your audience when they go to YouTube and they're watching content related to that niche. So it could be fitness, it could be cooking, it could be education. What is the content they're watching on YouTube and what kind of like format, what kind of style are they watching? Now, everyone's going to have a different answer to this. Try to get the majority of it. This is why having a conversation, a dialogue with your audience is important. Like understanding what are they watching on YouTube when they're not watching your short form content. Of course, this could be like your YouTube Shorts audience even. Like when they go from YouTube Shorts mode to like YouTube long form mode, what are they watching? What creators they're watching related to your niche? What's it look like? What's it feel like? Get it down to a bare minimum and just start experimenting with that. It's not just doing a longer YouTube Shorts or a TikTok for long form. It's literally doing like the thing that people want instead of short form. So it might be totally opposite. This is why I think these creators are like actually already doing the thing they need to be doing. They're successful long form through live streams. What they want is that replay factor. What's funny is they probably are getting replay factor. they get so much views on their live streams that they actually beat out even me, my like on-demand replay strategy that's filmed and edited and produced so that it could be on demand. That's where I would start. It's like maybe a whole different thing. And the reason the first thing I said was important about like it doesn't always translate, you know, your audience doesn't move from TikTok to YouTube is you might discover a whole nother audience. Now, in addition to that though, is ask yourself, what do you have the bandwidth, right? I talked about time and bandwidth, but also what do you actually want to create? What's going to be most natural for your style? Because just because you see this other creator doing this, that might not fit with your personality.
Yeah.
Okay. So say you're a fitness creator and you're doing these shorter videos or whatever they might be, and you're thinking, oh, I'll just do the longer version of this. But no, Benji said, like, try to find like what's complementary, what is my core audience watching on YouTube, and then you find other creators like that. Say there's a certain format of fitness video, like maybe it's like kind of cinematic or it's like hella motivational, but it doesn't fit your personality, then that wouldn't work because it would be forced. Whatever is most natural and comes naturally to you is what you should do.
Yeah.
That's not for me to answer. That's for you to like figure out. Part of the reason why experimentation is going to be part of it, but you can't experiment until you actually do it.
No.
This is why my vlogging academy, my new vlog method is so important because, I'll just give you the 3 T's, right? This is the 3 T's of the new vlog method. You have a theme for your channel. It's not a niche. It's more broad. You have a topic and takeaway for your vlog, something that's super focused, that takes advantage of the algorithm, helps you get discovered when people are watching that thing that they're interested in, and you tell more stories. And when you're doing that, there's 3 phases. The first phase, I don't even have to go on the second or third one. The first phase is all volume. You're doing it a lot, literally daily, I would suggest if you can, and you're experimenting. You're seeing what sticks. So when you're in that first phase, say you are going ham and you're going 7 days a week. In that 7 days, you might test 3 different formats. You keep doing that week after week after week, right? Even just after 4 weeks, something's going to stick more than other things. That's a signal to maybe go that direction.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not even going to define what that format is, what you're experimenting. You just, you kind of guess. Most people, especially if they're already successful at TikTok, they can't take when something's not working on YouTube. They need it instantly. That's not how it works. What's kind of crazy is I'm actually in this boat. I knew this from the very beginning, but even now, after doing this for almost 20 years, even when I start, even though I have all the skills, all the knowledge, I have all the tools, I have the team, I have the resources, I take that, what do you call it? I swallow my pride, right, pill, and I don't worry about it. And if something doesn't get a lot of views, that's okay. What's important is like, what gets more views than the other videos?
Yeah.
That is the clue to follow. So let's go back to like kind of bring it to a head here. Try to figure out how you can buy yourself more time, or just, you know, like delegate off more time for you to have more time, or maybe just don't do certain things that's not paying you, right? Got to create more time. 2, you create long form content that's complementary, not an extension or replacement for short form. Knowing that, guess what? That audience might not translate to this new thing. But if you figure out what that core audience on your short form strategy is watching on the long form platform, which is YouTube, and you start there, that's a great starting place. And then 3rd, match whatever is working to what you want to do, which is natural for you, so that you don't come off forced or like awkward, because no one wants to be in that situation, right? On both sides, the viewer doesn't want to see it and you don't. Also, you might still have to go through that season. Maybe like because you've never talked for like 30 minutes on a video.
Yeah.
So you have to get used to it. Just know that that's part of it, which goes into why I say experimentation is part of it, and it's not going to hit right away. And that's totally okay. Not everybody is off to the races and gets 100,000 views on their first video. In fact, it's almost like 99% don't do that. Everyone takes time because they're assuming their TikTok audience is going to go to YouTube. And if they get 100,000 views there, they're like, I can at least get 50,000 views or 10,000 views. And then you get 100 views. And like, what the hell? And you immediately be like, this ain't working.
Yeah.
Remember, YouTube is so big. There's so many channels, so many creators, so many pieces of content. It has to determine what to put in front of somebody. So if you're a new kid on the block, even if you have an audience that migrates over, no guarantee that the algorithm's like, hey, we'll put your videos in front of people until you prove yourself. But the speed at which you can go from 100 views to 100,000 views can be way faster than you think, as long as you're committed to the long game and you kind of work it. It's like you have to relearn the content creation process because it's so different from short form. I don't even have to go into the differences. You know this inherently. Just be patient, be committed, go for the long game. And just like it worked on short form, it could work there as long as you start in the same place. That's why I think a lot of vloggers should sign up for Vlogging Academy. I literally teach you what to do with a one-person team. Nobody else. You can do this all on your own to take advantage of that phase one of doing volume and experimenting. You don't even have to do it if you just follow what I just say. It's just that will be the vehicle that helps speed up the process, which we have a link down in the description for that.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, vloggingacademy.com. You can go there if you want to sign up for that roadmap.
Yeah, I mean, 100 views to 100,000 views is one thing, but we haven't even talked about the money in there either, right? The money is way better as well because you get access to AdSense, which is like the number one way that you can kind of get started making money as a creator there.
That's why most people want to be on YouTube, because they're not making enough on TikTok to justify the hamster wheel, right? Like if you're on a hamster wheel and it's freaking going smoking, right? And you're like doing this every single day.
I was going to say, to keep that momentum going too after you stop.
Well, not only that, you're doing that and not making enough money.
Yeah,
that sucks.
Yeah.
If you're doing that on YouTube and you're getting those kind of views, guess what? At least AdSense gives you a base layer. If not, in some cases, the longer your videos are, the more money you make. It's just better than ever right now, AdSense. I'm literally making more money on AdSense I ever did pound for pound than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Definitely more than 20 years ago. And we just went through this whole thing where people now paying YouTube to be a subscriber to their premium product, and you make money off of that as well. So the more airtime you have, the longer you keep people's attention. This is why extreme long form content is winning, and that's why live streaming is like the biggest hack of them all. That's all you got to know, and you just keep doing that. If there's one metric that you're going to obsess about as a long form creator that you don't even think about, it's almost embarrassing to look at it, is average view duration. Look into that, do your own research, but the quick takeaway, this is the amount of time the average viewer spends watching this video. You're going to find that it's 10x anything any one TikTok can do.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the beginning of you growing that and like following the clues. So I talk about whatever gets more views, but also what is the average view duration in your analytics. Kind of obsess about that.
Yeah, a little teaser. Next week, we're going to talk a lot about the kind of relationship between watch time and view time and all of these weird things in the back end of YouTube Studio that can maybe be a little overwhelming, and revenue in particular. But we're saving it for next week so that way we can really dive into it. But I want to ask one more question as a follow-up to that. If you were to imagine them as representative of like the average TikToker, right? The average short form creator who's considering going to long on YouTube, but maybe doesn't have the motivation or, as you brought up in the beginning, the bandwidth or the time to do it right now. How much or how important is it for them to do it now rather than waiting in the future? Now, like another way of thinking about this is that if your plate is 100% full, what percentage of the effort would you recommend carving out in order to make time to start doing this YouTube thing? If you've already got a business running, or you've already got a channel running, or you've already got an account kind of started on these other things that might take a little steam away from these short form platforms.
That's a hard question to answer because everybody's going to be in a different circumstance. They're going to be in a different season of life. But the real question is, how serious are you about succeeding with long form?
Yeah.
Because as you wait a week or a month or 6 months, I can assure you there's a ton of people starting this game right now. I mean, our students of Vlogging Academy, right? Anybody that's like starting a YouTube channel, any other short form creators like, F this. I don't want to be on the hamster wheel anymore. I'm going to give 90% of my effort. I actually know creators that have done that. They're like, you know what? I'm going to completely stop short form and go into it. Those are the ones that often succeed at the highest level. To put an arbitrary number on anybody, including these creators, is not really doing them justice.
That's fair.
I think that you have to like really think through this and like at least be doing like 10%. at the very beginning. So even if you're going to give up a little bit of traction on the other thing, I'm not saying give up completely because maybe that's how you pay the bills. You got to give at least 10% of the time. But do you understand? That's why I started with that advice. Like, how valuable is your hour? Where can you get more hours in the week? Most creators don't even think like that. They're just like, they'll work from right when they wake up in the morning and all the way to when they sleep. And they're like, this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
I've been there. My wife has been there. So I'm not saying this as like this Mr. Smarty Pants. It's all about strategy. We went through those hustle seasons, but how did we continue to grow and, live our life? Get married, have 5 kids, travel the world and do all these things? I was being more discerning about my time. I was valuing my dollar, right? Like value way more than ever before. So I'm saying no to a lot more and saying yes to a lot less. Not just in terms of brand deals, but even like content I'm going to create and things I'm going to take on. And this is why if you ever get an invite by me, you'll almost always see this. I know your time is valuable. I wouldn't even think about, wanting to hang out with you, inviting you to one of my creator events unless I thought it was worth it for you to, be part of it. Because I know like how busy you can get and how much demand being a creator is. And that's just from me inviting you to something I think is actually valuable. You have to be that way for your own life,
Yes.
for your own schedule, and for your own hours or your own time. Because otherwise, you're just going to think, I'm just going to load another 20 hours to a 40-hour work week. Doesn't work. Guess what happens? Burnout.
I mean, let me ask it from another angle too, because if the baseline is 10% for someone who's gauging it for themselves, right? Why now? Right? Because I'm wondering about the urgency of this. Like, is there a difference between doing it this week versus this month versus this year versus this decade? Or does it matter at all? Like, because it's always going to be the same. It's always
100% matters. 2 reasons. Number 1, my wife started in beauty. Not everybody knows my wife, but guess who almost every person in the beauty industry, including now, knows? Michelle Phan. She's the OG. Like, OG probably was created because of this creator who started doing makeup videos. One of her first ones was on a plane because her blog reader is like, hey, can you do a video version of it? There's this thing called YouTube and do it. She's like, I guess so. Started a whole niche. And because she was the first one, and I give her credit though, it wasn't like she just because she was first. She had high quality videos. She kept leveling up the production. For 20 years, she's been like the person. I remember the first time Michelle Phan walked into the room that I was in, it was like she was floating on air. She kind of has this mystique about her, but the reason is how everyone perceived her because everybody knew who she was because she was the very first. Even Judy says if she had to start 10 years later, it would have been so hard she might not have even wanted to start in the first place. What do they call it? First movers advantage, right? It is a real thing. So if you start now, you're going to have less competition. Every single day, there's more competition. Okay. That's just how it is with anything, right? Which one do you want to be? Do you want to be at the gold rush area, like on day 1 or after like literally there's gold rush, people all over literally the map looking for gold. You want to be there before everybody else. That's how it is. The second reason you want to start, even if you're not ready, even if you don't have enough time, I don't know how long it's going to take you to get good at this.
Interesting.
That is based off of your skills, your talents, and just wherever you're at. You have to think about that. So starting early is better, even if it's only for a little bit. We talk about Taekwondo a lot. I tease Taekwondo, and even if like you're a beginner and you only can come one day, that's better than no days at all. Rather than putting it off, I can just teach you one move every single day that you come in. Maybe you can only come in once every 2 weeks. We'll work on that one move. And guess what? Next time you come in, you're going to be that much better. And over time, you're going to get to a place where like now you can give the full commitment. You'll be light years ahead versus like, let's just wait till that time comes. Okay. Most people think YouTube is so difficult. They just put it off when they're ready. Nah, you need to do this right now, even if it's just a little bit, because again, I don't know. You have to answer this question. Where are you at in that skill level? Because at the end of the day, it is the people that have the skills. But I think in the case of YouTube, it's just like the skill of being comfortable on camera and just recording yourself and adding value to someone's life.
Yeah.
There is still a certain like talent there that it takes time to do that.
Yeah.
And it's time doing the thing, even if it's a little bit right now and you gradually get to more later when it makes sense, right? It could be just make sense financially. So though that's how I would answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, if you've listened to the rest of the show, you should know by now, 2 hours in, that things are changing, right? Netflix is looking at YouTube as a competitor. Billboard is looking at YouTube and picking fights with them. YouTube is kind of sitting there floating above them all, just confident in what they are. And part of that is because the viewing behavior is changing, right? TV is a big piece of what's happening. And that new viewing behavior from audiences across the world, like Taylor Swift at the beginning, like Bad Bunny that we talked about at the beginning, these changes in the platform are what create those opportunities to become people like Judy or like Michelle, who are there early and capitalize early. And when those things are shifting is when new winners are made. Whereas when everything is stable, that's when everything kind of ossifies and stays the same. And so on that note, any final words before we close out today's show, Benji?
Well, when I think about when we first started this whole journey of the Creator Secrets podcast, even before that was what we labeled it, this new era that we're in is all about not only long form, but super long form. So long used to be like 15, 20 minutes. Now it's like 30 minutes, 60 minutes. In the case of some live streams, including like this, 1, 2, or 3 hours. That is the new era of opportunity. This is why interesting when a creator wants to go from short form to long form. Some of their first videos are like 4 minutes long.
Yeah.
No, people are watching YouTube on the TV. So just understand this new opportunity, this bigger opportunity, no pun intended, is with this longer format. This is why live streaming fits perfectly, because to edit a 1 to 2 hour video, which people do, we have our friends, Pat Flynn and Dan Norton, a Deep Pocket Monster. They just uploaded like an hour-long video that got like 1 million views in 2 days. Takes a lot of work to do it, and it's working. But the point is this: there's an audience out there that's demanding and wanting that super long form. When I say super long form, this is just like what we used to do on TV.
Yeah.
30-minute show, hour-long, special, 2-hour movie. And if you're the creator that can do that, especially if you do it with minimal production, DJI Osmo, no
Extra
editor,
Muse.
right? My Lord, this is the time. This is like 2008 all over again. And I don't say that lightly because, man, if I could go back with what I know and do that again, it'd be game over. I'd be like hanging out with Mr. Beast more often. But we don't have to do that. You can do that right now in 2026. And that is special because that doesn't happen every day. And the number one culprit of that, other than like the viewing behavior changing, is the TV. The YouTube TV app. We just talked about how people are paying for YouTube Premium and YouTube TV. And that's a whole different ball game. And that's why Vlogging Academy is very helpful. This is why we're so grateful for our sponsor, Ecamm Live, who lets you do professional, long form live streams at home and have like professional level, tools and, bells and whistles. So thank you, Ecamm, for sponsoring this vlog. And it's the beginning of another 20 years of opportunity. Those short forms here to stay. TikTok's not going away. Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. This, to me, is like the greener pasture that is less traveled and it's easier than you think. Start right away, even if it's just a little bit, because you won't regret it. You'll be thankful 6 months from now, a year from now. You don't want to be the person that starts 5 years from now and be like, dang, if I only started then. Starting then or starting now can just mean like once a week you commit to doing one long form video, even if it just doesn't work out. What you're going to learn over time will literally be like priceless versus just waiting for the perfect time.
When you put it that way, 10% seems pretty small. Great thanks to our sponsor, Ecamm Live, the powerful live streaming platform for Mac. You can learn more about Ecamm Live at the link in the show notes, and you can get 15% off to support the show with our code BenjiTV15. As always, thanks to our students at Vlogging Academy, and thank you so much for listening. See you next week.